first of all, I want to start by saying thank you so much. You know, I woke up this morning in a funk. I don't think depressed is the right word. I'm just struggling. Like I've been on and off. Like there are days that are harder than others. There's a song called Waves by Dean Lewis where he talks about it comes and goes in waves. For me, it's like there are waves of great happiness and there are waves of great sadness for me recently. And I woke up and I was having a hard time and I just said, hey, the door's unlocked. I'm taking a shower. You walked into my place and you came you had the smile on your face, which is really helpful to me. You gave me a hug and then you made me coffee, which is awesome. You brought donuts, you brought spaghetti and chili. We'll make, Skyline chili later. To me, like...
We'll make an adequate version of Skyline chili.
We won't really do it justice. We'll do our own crappy version. But for me, I just want to say, like, it was so... it was nice to have someone come into my house and care. It was like, it was really nice to have my dad come and take care of me a little bit, give me coffee and give me a hug.
So what's your funk about? What? And did you have nightmares last night?
Yeah, I did. I had horrible nightmares. There's this thing I'm dealing with. I'm ready to get on with it, and it's been really a frustration to me. My girlfriend broke up with me about December 6th, about a month ago. And it's sick that I know the date like so easily. She was my best friend, and it was 5 years of my life, and I thought I was going to marry her. And so it made sense to me that I was a mess for a while. Like it really did. I was like, okay, I get it. Like, of course I'm going to be grieving. Of course I'm going to be really struggling. Like it was a dramatic, ending to something. But I'm at the point where I'm ready to get on with it, and it won't go away. It just keeps coming back. It keeps bothering me. I'll wake up every once in a while and just like I feel like I can't get out of bed, and it's like it won't leave me alone. And
okay, so we need to clarify some things for listeners. So you didn't date your girlfriend for 5 years.
No. I think that the key was I was in the friend zone for like 5 years.
And you didn't want to be.
No, and I wanted to be dating her for a long time, and so for me it was a long journey of wanting this thing, and I finally got it. And then it left.
And you weren't just in the friend zone for 5 years, if I understand correctly. You were longing for her and hoping for her, and in your head, sometimes waiting for her. Now, she didn't necessarily know when that was going on. That's not on her at all. That's on you.
No.
But when you have that kind of hope and expectation and that longing, what does it say in the good book? Hope deferred maketh the heart grow sick. And you had 5 years of deferred hope, and then victory. You got out of the friend zone. You started dating. I remember seeing when you talked about it on Strong Opinion Sports, people would comment on your YouTube comments that Zach's the king. He got out of the friend zone. They were so excited for you, and you gave hope to all of mankind to escape the friend zone.
Yeah.
So it was not 5 years of dating her, but 5 years of longing and hope and desire, and maybe, and then you finally started dating her, and then the relationship ended. Is it possible, just maybe, that you're grieving?
Yeah, absolutely. But I just don't want to be anymore. Like, I think that's the key. Like, and well, stop laughing at me. It's hard. Like, because here's the thing. And I wanted to, I'm so glad we started with this because I wanted my dad's advice on this because I feel like I start every episode of Strong Opinion Sports recently with like, hey, I'm still struggling. I'm sorry it's taken me a couple days to make this episode. Like, I keep apologizing for it. And I just want it to be done. I want to just get on with it. Okay,
so you want to be done grieving.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's something I used to teach back in my nonprofit days.
I think you're going to make fun of me. I don't like this.
In the words of Mrs. Doubtfire, brace yourself, Effie. People in Baptist hell want ice water. And they're not getting that. So you're not getting... I had an old boss years ago, Pat Martin, on Patrick's Carpet on Martin Way in Olympia, Washington. And I'd go in and ask him a question and say, can we do this? And he goes, Stephen, people in Baptist hell want ice water. And first time I said, what does that mean? He says, they're not getting that, and you're not getting what you'd asked for. Now go away. And then he'd laugh, and then often he'd say yes, but he always like kind of jerking my chain a little bit. Yeah. He actually, go off on tangent, he helped me significantly. I don't know if it's this episode, next episode, we're going to talk about where you get your value. And we've got to talk about Patrick Martin and the trick he played on me and how it shaped my life in therapy later.
Well, here's what we can do then. We'll tease that because I want to, what I learned in this whole process of this breakup, and we won't get into it today, but we'll just tease it. It's the topic coming ahead, is that I realized how much I struggle with. And when Zane died, for example, it was liberating. I was like, I'm done with this. And I was freed to like say, fuck everybody. I'm making a YouTube channel and do whatever I want.
When Zane died, you were liberated because you quit worrying about the thoughts of others.
Yes.
To be very, very clear about that. Zane was not a burden to you.
No.
Zane did not chain you.
I just said, I don't care what other people think anymore.
That's one of the shifts that happened to your heart. Is fuck all you all.
I'm sad. My brother died. Fuck everybody else. Like, I'm just going to take care of me.
Yeah. In my head to this day, I still Zane's dead. Fuck you. I don't have time for your bullshit. I literally say that in my head. And some people, I can't say that out loud out because I think I'm somehow speaking against Zane, but it's like a big thing shifted. Okay, but you're grieving, so you said, go ahead.
But well, I just want to say that one thing that I've really struggled with in this breakup, and we should talk about it in the future, is that I learned and I relearned this thing that your sense of self-worth shouldn't come from the approval of others. And it's been, as the breakup happened, and then now I'm on YouTube, and it's like, suddenly comments mean more to me. Suddenly, like, for some reason, like, I made videos for 2.5 years, 4 or 5 years, like, didn't care what anybody thought of it. For some reason now it's harder. And for some reason now, I think the rejection, the breakup, all of it has just been, we just got to talk about it someday. And I think it's a much longer topic I don't want to get into today. But at some point we got to talk about the idea that your sense of self-worth shouldn't come from the approval of others.
So you had at least a 5-6 year journey. How long did you actually date your girlfriend?
Like 6 months.
6 months, yeah. But for you, it's like 5-6 year journey. And now you're grieving. And now you just want the grieving to end.
Yeah.
So I recently heard on a podcast, someone told the story. They said that grieving is like going to the bathroom.
Who could that have been?
Yeah, and where did they learn that? So was that you? Who was that on your podcast?
I learned that from you. The thing you always said growing up, you said grieving is like going to the bathroom. It happens when nature calls. When it's time, you got to do it.
You got to do it when you got to do it.
And if you don't go to the bathroom when it's time, bad things happen.
Yep. And now that I'm old, I think I'm done, and then I got to do it some more. And so you may want to be done, but you're done when you're done. It's like going to the bathroom. Yeah. You're done when you're done. You're not done grieving. So you're just going to have to let the grieving process work itself out. I think today we're going to talk about the creative process, but there's a grieving process where you're going to have to let it out. And the grief is going to come like waves. And it's going to come and go. And if you stuff it and don't cry and don't embrace it, it's going to get stuck in there and create misery for you. You're just going to have to keep grieving. There's no way around it. Well, there's no healthy way around it.
Yeah. What is the healthy way to do it? Just grieve when it happens?
Just grieve when it happens. Yeah. Did I ever tell you about how I grieved your grandma passing?
No. Which is funny because we have had many conversations. We just never went that direction.
Yeah. So, your brother, my youngest, was born August 2000.
Yep.
Grandma moved in with us March of 2000. So emotionally, I had my grandma as someone to care for longer than I had my youngest.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal. And when she first moved in with us, she'd walk around and she'd drink her coffee, make her coffee, and microwave in the microwave, and make her Eggo waffles in the toaster. And at the very end, the last year or so, I was her complete caregiver. And like, oh my gosh, if you told me when I was a little kid eating, French toast at her thing that I'd be changing her Depends, oh my God.
Don't foreshadow that to me. Don't put that on me, Dad. You're going to die alone in a nursing home.
I know. It's like, dang, Zane died. He was the only one that would have taken me in, but neither you and your brother. I'm just going to be cast out of the woods like some ancient tribal experience.
Go die in a hole, Stephen.
But so then she died in 2007, and I knew about crying. I'd taught grieving, and I was, in the nonprofit world, and I was ready for that. And she passed away, and this is the hard thing. When you're caring for someone that's had ongoing, it's a lingering illness or cancer or whatever, part of what happens is you feel relief because all of that work is gone, and then you feel guilty, you feel relieved, and now I don't feel guilty anymore when those kind of things happen. I just accept it. It is a relief, and it's relief and sadness, and it's not wrong to feel the relief.
She was both your grandma and also to some degree an emotional weight as well.
Yeah, and worry and concern and hard work and effort, and
seeing someone you care about struggles painful and difficult to watch.
Yep. And I loved. I cared for her, but it was a relief, and I knew I'm not crying yet. What's going on? I need to cry. And that was fall. She passed away, and I thought, well, I'll cry when I'm ready, just like I go to the bathroom when I'm ready. I knew that was our analogy was in my head. When I do it, I'll do it. And growing up, my grandma loved Harlequin romance novels. She had rows, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them in her bedroom, as tall as she was, and they're only like this tall, these books, and then like many, many shelves high, and hundreds of them. And I just felt sad for her. My grandfather was a terrible human being and literally called her dummy and had affairs on her all the time. And I think she just wanted to be loved and cherished. I don't think she ever felt that. So she escaped into romance novels. And her favorite romance novel when she was living with us, author, was Debbie McComber. So I'd go to the Alberts on 122nd and Division. I remember used to be an Albertsons there, and I'd go into the little end cap, and they had romance novels on the end cap, and I'd look for a new Debbie McComber novel. And even if it was a re-release, she didn't know. She was happy to get a new Debbie McComber novel. So I'd always go in, and the women look at me like I'm nuts. What are you doing buying this romance? And I'd buy her one. So she passes away in the fall, gets toward Christmas. I go into Albertsons. I got my cart. I'm shopping, getting some things, for dinner. And I'll go see if there's a Debbie McComber romance novel for my grandma. I walk over. I find one. There's a new one. It's a Christmas theme. I go, oh, she'll love it. I reach for it to grab it off the rack. And as I touch it, it hits me. My grandma's gone. She's gone. I'm never going to be able to take her this. And I just started crying right then. And I go, wow, this is how it happens, because that's what triggered me. It's important to know that there's triggers to these grieving things. So I literally pushed my cart to the side and I went out and got in the minivan and I just started crying and wailing and making horrible noises because I knew that's okay. Sometimes there's that ugly cry where you're just making such horrible noises, you scare yourself. And if you're really, really grieving, maybe for the first 2 or 3 times of a tragic loss, you can't even get on the bed. You're just on the floor and it's terrible. And I wanted to buy snotbubbles.com, but some idiot owned it because you are you're crying so hard snot bubbles are coming out your nose.
Yeah.
So instead,
Ugly cry.
I bought that uglycry.com instead. There's that ugly cry, and I was doing that, and it was the first time I'd really grieved, and then I hit my head on the steering wheel and then hit the horn and scared the crap out of myself and cried a little more. Said, okay, I'm done. And I went back in and it was such a dysfunctional store. My cart was still there in the corner. So I went and got my cart and finished my shopping. And so I was triggered.
Yeah.
And so you get triggered for these things.
Man, one of the hardest parts is that she was really passionate about music. That was her thing. And we had all these songs together, like 5 years worth of music. So now all the music I listened to for the last 5 years is painful to listen to. I'm like trying, like Dean Lewis has been a guy I've found recently. Like I'm finding new music, but I can't listen to the old music. I can't even, my favorite artist, John Bellion, still is painful and hard to listen to. And that just breaks my, like I want to listen to John Bellion, I just can't get myself to do it yet.
But hang in there with it.
Yeah.
So Zane loved to watch the Arrowverse. He and I watched Arrow together. Yeah. We watched Flash together. He loved Legends of Tomorrow because I knew all the characters and we could joke about things and talk about things. And the night he died, when I left the house, I said, when I get back, Zane, we'll watch Legends of Tomorrow. It's recording right now. It was a Monday night. And I said, love you. And he said, love you. And I could never watch that episode. But eventually I got back to watching it, and this year they have Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was a big crossover of all the shows. And when I was a kid, that was a huge, big deal in a comic book, and I'm so glad now I can enjoy that show now, and I've healed enough that I can still enjoy, wow, I get to watch Crisis on Infinite Earths on TV, the comic book I read in the 80s. So hang in there. Eventually, John Bellion will be there for you when you're ready. Yeah. Eventually things will shift.
I just think that's one of the things I had no idea would come. Like, I think no one tells you that when you break up with someone, music gets hard. That's not the thing that you think of first. You're like, music is just
music
awful.
Attached to that relationship gets hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it will be whenever you have a loss, there'll be things you're not aware of that are connected to that loss, that when you encounter those things, it's a trigger and it triggers your grief. And if you enter into it, eventually those things, it becomes not as a big a trigger, and that maybe you become more wistful instead of just, blubbering. But the challenge is people it's painful, so they step away from it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's good to lean into those things, particularly when it's grieving, so that you can bawl and you can cry. Thursday, I had lunch with a high school friend of mine, Patsy Sherman.
You know, it's cool because I heard of Patsy before. I saw that picture and I was like, I know, but I've heard stories about her. That's really cool.
Yeah, in high school, we had powder puff football, and a couple years ago, I got to coach the powder puff football team. And so there's two guys each. A guy would coach team, another guy would coach the other team, and all the girls, we'd coach them in football. And I was so excited. I had 2 members-only jackets, a white one and a black one, and I wore the white one to coach. And Patsy was just a dominant, amazing player on the powder puff, and she was a cheerleader in my high school and a volleyball player. And years later, I find her on Facebook, and tragically, she lost her son just before Thanksgiving. And I was able to walk her through that, and we talked, and we had lunch on Thursday at Holman's, a restaurant here in Portland, and the things that trigger her. And I had to talk to her about triggers, and I talked about holidays being triggers. What's going to be harder for you? Yeah. Your son's birthday or the anniversary of his passing? Because for me, Zane's birthday isn't as painful as the anniversary of his passing. Whereas like for your mom and your brother, I think it's both, or maybe the birthday's even more painful. So I had to talk to her about dates and which dates come back will be hard for her. And then she'd hit her that probably Father's Day is going to be really hard for her because her husband lost his son, and that's going to trigger grieving for her on Father's Day. And so it's important to be aware that there are triggers, but when you start crying and you start grieving, what should you do? Lean into it. And that's how you get through it. And I'm sorry, I really wish your grieving was over, but 5 years, 6 years, that's a big loss. You had a lot of hope and stuff wrapped up into that.
I was close with her family. I miss her family, which is weird and like painful to say, but her dad and I were close. It was fun.
Yeah, and so you just got a lot of loss, and eventually you will do it. One advice is eventually, when Zane passed, I did a lot of posting on social media, and then I realized that I was not only bumming myself out, but I was bumming out my fans and my friends, but I still needed to tell the story, so I started a Facebook page. a grief expressed instead of a grief observed. C.S. Lewis wrote a book called A Grief Observed, and I put up a grief expressed so I could, and it's like, this is where sad shit goes about grieving and the loss of my son. It's called A Father's Grieving Journey. And I put all that stuff there. So if you want a grieving sadness, that's where you went. And I kind of tapered it down from putting it out on my main
That's what I'm
main
realizing
content.
is on my social media, I think I'm getting it's wearing thin now. Like I need to stop saying on Strong Opinion Sports. I need to stop sharing on my Instagram story. It's just wearing thin. People are like ready for me to get on, and I'm ready to get on too.
But maybe this is a place where you can occasionally in this podcast check in, and it's just a short segment where you kind of give an update, and eventually by summer or fall or maybe spring, I don't know what the time frame is, but not by February, I don't think.
Yeah.
You'll move through it, and then there is a place I can express it, because the thing about grieving is we do need to express it. We have to express what's going on with our journey. I just express it on a piece of grieving platform I made.